One agent, 5 steps, and a trading system that researches, tests, deploys, and then polices itself. Here's exactly what it does by the end of this video. It classifies the market regime from measured data, not from a guess. It searches open-source TradingView indicators and has to justify every one it picks. It writes the strategy twice, once in Python for the backtest engine, once in PineScript version 5 for the chart, and the two have to agree before anything goes live. It runs the backtest in plain English with fees and slippage priced in, then checks its own results against statistical guardrails it is not allowed to argue with, and it places orders on the exchange through a server we build ourselves with a stop attached to every entry. You do not write a line of code anywhere in that pipeline, and you do not pay for a single tool in it. Every command, every prompt, and both strategy templates are in the companion guide in the Alpha Cartel Discord. Link is in the description. And stay for step 3, because that is where I show you how to get a real out-of-sample equity curve on camera today, instead of telling you to come back in 3 months. Let us start with the stack. 5 components and 1 protocol holding them together. The brain is Claude Code, running in the terminal. The backtest engine is Jesse. It is an open-source Python framework for algorithmic trading. It runs entirely on your machine, and I already have it wired to Claude over a local MCP server. That connection is what lets you say, run this on 4 years of 30-minute data with realistic fees and get a real metric setback. For research, an open-source TradingView MCP server, market data, technical analysis tools, and the community indicator library, self-hosted with a pip install. No account, no subscription. Every connector here is either open source or something we built, which means nothing in this pipeline breaks because somebody changed their pricing page. Claude Code installs globally through NPM Node 18 or newer. Jesse installs under Python 3.12 specifically. If you let it default to 3.13, you will spend your evening reading dependency errors instead of building. Once it is up, download the candle data for the pair you are testing before anything else, because every backtest in the video depends on it being local. Then the project folder with 4 subfolders, strategies, backtests, reports, dashboard, and a Claude.md file at the root. Claude Code reads that at the start of every session. That file matters more than it looks because it is what stops the 3 failures that ruin this kind of build. Then verify, and do not skip this. List the servers, confirm all 3 are connected. That is step 1. The agent has hands. Step 2, and this is where the quality of the whole system gets decided. You are not asking for a strategy. You are handing the agent a research protocol and making it work through 5 stages in order, stopping at each one so you can read the output before it moves on. The full template is in the guide. Paste it once, and it drives the loop. Stage 1. Regime classification. Before it proposes anything, the agent has to classify the market as trending, mean reverting, or high volatility chop, and support that call with measured evidence. The ADX distribution. Realized volatility percentiles. Autocorrelation of returns. The ratio of directional to ranging periods. Stage 2. Indicator discovery. The research server searches open-source community indicators for the regime it just identified. 4 to 6 candidates, and each one has to be justified mechanically. What it actually measures, its look-back sensitivity, why it suits this regime, and its known failure mode. Trend structure, momentum, volatility expansion, participation. If the agent cannot explain what an indicator measures, it does not go in the strategy. Stage 3. Engineering. The specification gets written in full before any code exists. Entry conditions, exit conditions, stop placement, position sizing, and what market behavior would break it. 3 to 6 conditions, everyone measurable. Then, and only then, it writes the Jesse strategy class. Stage 4. The backtest and the guardrails. The agent runs it through Jesse with fees and slippage applied, and hands back the full metric set. Then the results have to clear an actual bar. Stage 5. Logging. Every candidate, passed or killed, gets written to the dashboard with its full metric set, its parameters, and the reason for the verdict. Step 3. The standard advice after a backtest is to forward test for 3 to 6 months before risking real money. That advice is correct, and it is also why almost nobody follows through. Nobody waits a quarter to find out their idea was garbage, so we compress it. The agent gets the earlier period only, 2021 through the start of this year. It designs and optimizes entirely inside that window. Every parameter it picks, every condition it writes, comes from that data and nothing else. In Jesse, this is just the date range on the backtest. In the Pine version, it is a data window input built into the script, in sample, out of sample, or all, with hard timestamps for both, and no order can be placed outside the selected window. The test is enforced by the code, rather than by you remembering to set a range. Then, with the strategy finalized and locked, you run it on the held back window. One honest test on data the strategy has never been exposed to. If the curve stays smooth and the drawdown profile resembles the in-sample period, you have real evidence. If it falls apart the moment it leaves familiar data, you just saved yourself 3 months and a live account. And it is one run. The moment you tweak a parameter and rerun on that window, it is contaminated. It is in sample data now, and it cannot validate anything. If you need another iteration, go back to the training window and hold back a different period. Step 4. This is where TradingView earns its place, and it is not for the pretty chart. The agent ports the same strategy into PineScript version 5, and you add it to the chart. Now you have 2 independent implementations of one idea. Same symbol, same time frame, same date range, same fee assumptions, written in 2 different languages by 2 separate passes. Then you compare them. Net profit, max drawdown, trade count, win rate. If those 2 implementations agree, the logic is probably what you think it is. If they do not, one of them is wrong, and finding that out here costs you an afternoon instead of an account. If the strategy tester looks materially better than Jesse did, audit every higher timeframe reference in the PineScript and confirm it reads a closed bar with look-ahead off. Higher timeframe data is where repainting almost always comes from. Once they reconcile, execution, a dedicated WEEX sub-account, an API key with read and futures permissions and withdrawals switched off, and all 3 credentials in your environment file. The runner is a small loop that computes the signal and calls the execution server, and it forks at the last step on one environment flag. Demo mode writes to the paper engine and the dashboard. Live mode calls the bracket order tool on WEEX. Same signal logic, same sizing, same risk gates either way. The only thing that changes is where the order lands. Step 5. This is the part that decides whether the system survives and the part that gets skipped in every other build video. A strategy running unsupervised needs a supervisor, and it cannot be you. There are 3 layers here, and they fail independently, which is the whole point. Layer 1 lives on the exchange. The stop attached to the bracket is sitting on WEEX's servers. Your machine can lose power, your internet can drop, the agent can crash, and that stop is still there. Layer 2 is the circuit breaker in the runner. If equity drops 4% below the session open, the loop stops opening positions for the rest of the session. Full stop. It also enforces the caps. 3 concurrent positions maximum, 6% of equity at risk across all of them, and no more than 2 positions in assets whose 30-day return correlation is above 0.8. Layer 3 is the agent, and it gets a fixed rules file, not preferences, rules it is explicitly told it may not relax, reinterpret, or temporarily suspend. It watches the equity curve against its own moving average and standard deviation bands, and if equity closes below the lower band, it treats that as a regime break rather than noise. Flatten through the execution server and halt pending review. It verifies that every open position actually has a stop attached and closes anything that does not, and it may never modify strategy parameters in response to a loss. It halts and reports instead. Then the reporting. Every day, the agent writes a summary. Active strategies and their status, open positions with sizes and stops, total exposure against the cap, realized result, current drawdown against both the daily limit and the historical max, every rule that fired, and anything that did not behave the way the backtest predicted. It ends on one line. System status: normal, degraded, or halted. And if you are running the Pine version on TradingView as well, that same 4% daily limit is written into the script itself. 4 independent things now have to fail at once before an unprotected position exists. That is the build. Step 1, environment, Jesse, and 3 connectors you own. Step 2, a research loop with statistical guardrails instead of vibes. Step 3, instant forward testing on held back data, so you get evidence today rather than a promise about next quarter. Step 4, a second implementation in PineScript as an independent check, then execution through your own WEX server. Step 5, 3 layers of risk that fail independently, plus daily reporting. The point is not that the model is clever, it is that the process is repeatable and that you own every piece of it. Run the same loop on a different market tomorrow and you get a comparable answer because the bar never moves. Every command, the full research protocol prompt, the Jesse strategy template, the complete PineScript version 5, and the exact risk rules block are all in the companion guide in the Alpha Cartel Discord. Link in the description. One last thing. This is educational content, not financial advice. Backtests are not returns. Every strategy in this video can lose money, and if you run it on real capital, that is your decision and your risk. If this was useful, subscribe. It is the only reason I keep making these.